Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, joined by Phil Chambers and Salty Sea Dog of WhatCulture to tell you what went down on night 2 of WrestleMania 37. And Phil, I suppose the most important thing that we leave WrestleMania 37 thinking about is the fact that Roman Reigns is still head of the table. He is still your Universal Champion. And it was a fairly divisive main event in terms of the result. Everyone thought the match, from what I've seen so far, was spectacular. Of course it was. It had Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan in. But yeah, the result, divisive, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Judging by the chat and our thing, I don't think anyone really quite knew where this match was going to go. It could have gone one of three ways. And that's what was so great about it, is that nobody really knew. But I think at the end of the day, the right decision. The tribal chief, he's the head of the table. You've got to acknowledge him now, and the stories that you can build from this, absolutely fantastic. And he still had to get Jey Uso in there as well at the end of it, but we'll get to all of that at the end. It's just really, really good main event.
I think universally it's accepted that night 1 of WrestleMania was better than night 2, but
yes,
night 2 had its moments, good and bad. Speaking of which, let's start at the beginning of the show.
And the bad.
Which opened with Randy Orton versus The Fiend. 6 months we've waited for this to come to its fruition, conclusion, whatever you want to call it. The Fiend was obviously burnt to death by Randy Orton at TLC. Then we had Crispy Fiend, and then he sort of re-emerged thanks to Alexa Bliss as The Fiend again tonight out of a giant Fiend in a box thing. And then he just had a wrestling match. And then as he was seemingly setting up to hit the Sister Abigail on Randy Orton, Alexa Bliss had changed from child to, I suppose, gooey child with a and that distracted him enough for Randy Orton to hit one hard-hitting RKO and pin him. Weird.
It's so weird. It goes against everything we know about The Fiend, of him kicking out of every single finisher as many times as humanly possible in every single match. He started off life at the very beginning of the show as the crispy, melty Fiend, and then he was kind of walking down a corridor of metal, and then he sort of slowly changed into the Fiend of old. So they've just given up on the crispy Fiend completely and just brought back the old mask, and that's all fine now. But yeah, the ending of it just had Alexa Bliss sat there with a crown of sparkly thorns on and just bleeding black goo. So I think the best that we could figure out from it was that she sacrificed herself in order to bring new life into the Fiend. And maybe that's going to be the end of the Fiend Alexa Bliss storyline. But it was just, as stupid as it sounds, in the middle of a Fiend match, a WWE distraction finish. Because the Fiend looked at Alexa Bliss, went, "What's going on over there?" Turned around, hit one RKO, and Randy Orton beat the Fiend. And that was that. That was the first half an hour of WrestleMania Night 2.
Well, that and Hogan and Titus O'Neil dressed as pirates, which was quite good.
Yeah, of course, that was fine.
I love the fact that she sacrificed herself to bring back the Fiend, who lost to Randy Orton in white gear. Right, anyway, let's move on. I feel like the comment section is going to have a field day with that, as is. Having fans back at WrestleMania, you just knew, Phil, that fans would cheer for anything. And WWE went, anything? What about a weird versus heel dynamic for the women's tag team titles? And that's what we got. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus the winner from Tag Team Turmoil on night 1, of course, Tamina and Natalya. First of all, without getting into the match too much, great to see Tamina get a reception like that, first of all.
Yeah. First time in the 10 years that she's been there that she's actually legitimately got a chant. And at WrestleMania as well, which is really, really good to see, because ain't nobody meaner than Tamina at the end of the day. But night 1 started with Bobby Lashley winning, which we all thought was a little bit strange, with the heel going over in the first ever match with fans back after a year and a month and a day that they've been speaking about so much. And then night 2 starts with the Fiend, which I guess was the babyface, losing, and then 2 heel teams going at it, which literally the crowd could not care less about. at this point. And I don't blame them, because they've been given nothing by WWE to make them care about this match. It is two heels that have been completely thrown together at last minute from no reason whatsoever. And then they just went and had like a TV match on a WrestleMania stage.
And just calculate this, 28 plus minutes that we had to waste on these matches on night one and night two. Utterly bloody pointless, because Natalia to me,
so we're right back at the beginning where we started at both of these nights.
I've really got to watch myself from swearing on these first couple of matches. Shayna Baszler choked out Natalia, as you would see. It was either that or a roll-up if you'd watch this match on TV. And it was just submission. Well, not a submission, a sort of knockout, or TKO, whatever you want to bloody call it. Who cares? Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are still tag team champions, and we didn't even get to see Reginald. I don't know why he wasn't there. Weird.
Mental. He was in the match graphic, but he didn't get to be in the match itself. Anyway, let's move on, because next up we had Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens in a match that we all knew was obviously going to be good, because look at those two people. They're really, really good. And this was very much the kind of Seth Rollins Cesaro slot of the night of just, this is going to be good. Let's just give them 10 minutes to go and do good things. And of course, they went and did good things, because they've got too much history not to. Logan Paul was just kind of sat at ringside. He got his entrance. Sami Zayn welcomed him, and he just kind of sat there, and that was all fine until the end, I guess.
Stadium.
He did indeed, which was a shame. But yeah, this was just two guys who've known each other forever having a good match together. Like, you're not going to write home about it being the best match in the world, but it was very, very enjoyable. It ended with Kevin Owens hitting the stunner on Sami Zayn, and then of course Logan Paul got involved in the end of it. Sami Zayn was very upset that Logan Paul wasn't on his side, I guess, at the end. And then Logan Paul tried to raise Kevin Owens' hand, and Kevin Owens was like, "What are you doing? Like, this isn't it." And then stunned him. And yeah, it was just everything that you needed from this point.
Exactly. At that point, you thought, okay, now WrestleMania started now. It's like the first two with the rain delay from the first night. And they're like, okay, now we're starting with WrestleMania. There you go. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn just doing Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn things.
Easy.
Like 10 minutes or something. Next up was a contender for match of the night, without question. Up until we got to that main event, it probably was match of the night. Sheamus and Riddle for the United States Championship. I mean, we could go through the spots in this match, Phil, but Cliff Notes, they beat the crap out of each other.
Absolutely. This is just Sheamus doing Sheamus things, and obviously Matt Riddle's going to go along with that, because that's the kind of style that he loves. They just hit each other as hard as they could. They made everything look real. There were a few botches in the match. However, gotta say that they styled these out so well. Like, both of them had a little moment. Sheamus had a bit where he was trying to get Riddle off the top rope to do, was it a superplex or something? But he was doing a white noise off the top rope, but he kind of slipped off the ropes and fell, but he incredibly managed to somehow land on his feet after falling off the rope, still with Riddle in his arms, and still hit the white noise and style it out so well. And Riddle was trying to do a big suplex, and he kind of jackhammer, and dropped him down a little bit, but then he just hurled him back up into the air and did a hell of a jackhammer that he just leapt himself into. And it was like the botches made the way they styled them out and brought it into the match, made it just feel that much more real, and it just added to it. It just worked so well.
And sweet Jesus, that finish, by the way, like you said, they'd just been battering each other for 10 odd minutes, and then Riddle goes to do a backflip off the middle rope, a la sort of Ricochet Adam Cole is the best way I can compare it to.
Yeah.
And Sheamus sees his opportunity, just bro kicks Matt Riddle's head off. I mean, he just toed him in the face. You saw Riddle's face just blood afterwards. But a spectacular finish. Sheamus, deservedly so, gets the win. He's had an amazing few months, in my opinion. And I don't like this whole argument sometimes of this person should just get a title because they deserve it. But my God, does Sheamus deserve it? And yeah, he's going to be a really intriguing United States champion going forward. And we said this at the time, Phil, run it back between these two, step up the match if you want, but they work so well together.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be fine seeing more of this. It's just easily a contender in the match of the night until that main event came along. But next up, it was the Nigerian drum fight that we'd wondered so much about because WWE had explained absolutely nothing about up until this point. And it turns out it was just a street fight. It was no DQ, no horse barred, and pinfalls count in the ring. It was just a plain old street fight. Except there were a few drums at ringside, and there was like a gong and a bunch of kendo sticks because apparently they're Nigerian now. Who knew? But Apollo Crews and Big E immediately went straight out of the ring. They both grabbed kendo sticks, and then they just proceeded to beat the hell out of each other for 10 minutes. Definitely not going to go down as one of the best matches ever, but they got as much as they could into the time that they had. And I guess the finish is by far the biggest talking point from this.
Yeah, I mean, like a bit like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they were both matches. Like, I do like the fact that aside from the main event on both shows, you didn't get a match that went over 20 minutes. It was a really refreshing change. I thought that for especially for like WWE, who tends to sort of, let certain things run on a little bit. But I felt like you could have given more time to this, and certainly to Owens and Zayn. I can understand why maybe this match didn't go as long. They've worked a lot together, and they were going for this sort of finish. But Apollo Crews is your new Intercontinental Champion, courtesy of help from a mysterious new partner who we've never
seen him before. Never seen.
I mean, he does look quite a lot like Dabba Kato, who's on Raw Underground, and WWE seemingly think that things that happened over 2 months ago we've forgotten about. They were just like, who the hell's this guy? They were tweeting about it. Michael Cole was just like, oh, he's got this mysterious new friend. It's Dabba Kato. Oh, God, I almost swore again, Phil. I really don't want to make your job harder than it is tonight.
So close.
It's Dabba Kato in a military jacket. That's all he is, in white trousers. It's Dabba Kato from Raw Underground. We literally watched you. He was drafted on Raw, you idiots. But anyway, Dabba Kato, he's got big old bastard in his corner, basically. But at least he's an Intercontinental Champion, which I suppose, if you want to argue that maybe that free Big E's up for a world title picture, who knows? But after everything that's gone on with Apollo Crews and Big E, yes, it was convoluted. Yes, it was screwy. But Apollo had to leave as Intercontinental Champion tonight, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been so weird if he'd gone through this amount of character change, this amount of heel turn, this amount of just change in general, and then it just failed in the end. That just wouldn't have worked. So at least it worked in that regard, but it was Dabba Kato hitting Big E with a move and then dragging Apollo Crews over onto his prone body. So not the most convincing win from Apollo Crews in the world.
Yeah, it'll be one of those things that'll have to be followed up on two nights where just a guy gets a big old bastard to do the hard work for him and then leaves with a new championship. But anyway, let's move on to the co-main event of the evening, that being the Raw Women's Championship match, Asuka against Rhea Ripley. A weird reception to this match, but that's understandable when you build it in 2 or 3 weeks. And one of those weeks is, can they coexist as a tag team? No, we've done this, guys. We've done this so much.
It doesn't work.
Why the crowd maybe wasn't into this as much as we wanted them to be.
Yeah, I
thought, they told an interesting story, but the difficulty is that they've only had 2-3 weeks, and if people don't know a lot about Rhea, like, I'm a hugely invested in Rhea Ripley. I think she could be one of the biggest stars in WWE, unquestionably. Just look at her. But if you don't know a lot about her, you're just like, oh, I don't really like her. And then they just sort of had a bit of a 50-50 battle. There was some impressive stuff in there just because they weren't coming off the top rope. Some people were like, oh, it's quite boring. I was like, it's not boring. There's no story there, and they're doing technical wrestling. Regardless, 10-15 minutes into this match, after a back and forth affair, as you would expect, Asuka's been Raw Women's Champion for so long. Seemingly out of nowhere, Rhea Ripley just snatched Asuka up, riptide, 1, 2, 3. And has had to happen, especially considering what happened with Ripley last year, Phil. She's your new Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah, absolutely the right decision in the end. Obviously means a lot to Rhea Ripley, and it's a really good moment there, but it definitely feel it could have been better served. If it was even the opening match of a card, I think people would have been way more into this, a little bit more excited. They hadn't had to go through that Wendy Orton, whatever that was, and the tag match, and a little bit of disappointment. If they just had a hot crowd on this, I think it would have been perceived a lot differently than what it came across in the end. It's a little bit unfortunate for them for the positioning on the card, but they both put on a great show. It's really good and definitely the right result coming out of it.
And before we get to the main event, Bayley thankfully got another spot on this card. He was popping up throughout both nights, appearing in backstage segments and the like, and interrupting Michael Cole, thank God. Botch Central on commentary, wasn't he? But then, she confronted the hosts of WrestleMania. She confronted Titus and Hulk Hogan, and she said, "Oh, all these bloody Hall of Fames, all these bloody legends in the back. Get out of the way. Let me have a bloody chance to speak." Bella Twins come out, and I just want to point out, actually, before I get there, a little jab about Nikki Bella and John Cena that was a spicy meatball. Crap out of her and hoid her 3/4 of the way down the ramp, Phil.
Yep, Bayley sold her ass off just to prove that, goddamn, she is a pro wrestler at the end of the day, and she should have.
She got pyro.
She did get pyro, and she got a moment on both nights. It's not a match. It's by far not what she deserves on this card at all. But she got something. At least it's something, and she was out there in front of the fans.
Maybe you could have spent the 28 minutes she did on the tag team bollock, giving her a match. Just a thought, future reference, guys.
Just maybe.
Anyway, let's get to the main event. Roman Reigns, Edge, Daniel Bryan. One of the most unpredictable main events I've gone into in quite some time, this film.
Yeah, absolutely. Genuinely could have gone one of three ways. And it's rare that we say that about WWE main events, because it's just been built quite well, and especially after that final SmackDown, that was just the solidification of, oh my god, literally anyone could win this, and it would be a very interesting story going forward. But of course, three very, very good professional wrestlers went in there and absolutely knocked it out of the park. The longest match of all of the 2 nights of WrestleMania, but also warranted, I think, with the stuff that they got in there. There was nice little callbacks to Daniel Bryan in his triple threat match at WrestleMania 30, where he got powerbombed through the table in this. Jimmy Uso was obviously there. Jey Uso, sorry, not Jimmy. That's a whole different thing. Was there early on because it's a triple threat match and there's no DQ in a triple threat match, but he got taken out quite early on with an execution on the steps, and we didn't see him until the finish. And it was just really good back and forth action from everyone. We saw a double spear from Edge and Roman where they just legged it at each other and just smashed forces, but it broke down in the end with Edge just desperately wanting to finish this, getting all the chairs in the world and going for executions on everyone. He hit one on Daniel Bryan, just absolutely smashed him with a steel chair. But when he was going for Roman Reigns, bloody Jey Uso got back in there and started taking control. Hit him with a super kick.
It's the finish. I just want to give a quick nod as well to that spot where he's trying to submit Roman Reigns with
the leg of a chair.
Daniel Bryan catches Edge's hand as he's about Roman's hand as he's about to tap out. Edge is like, "What are you doing?" Daniel Bryan's like, "You want to see a submission, mate? I should see a submission." Plus another submission on Roman Reigns, and the two proceed to headbutt each other whilst Roman Reigns is just getting murked on the ground. And then, as you said, concertos left, right, and centre. One for Daniel Bryan, who sold it magnificently.
Yeah, he was there just getting the old leg twitch going, and just he was absolutely dead. It's good.
And just before that as well, earlier on, Edge basically had the match won. 1-2, Daniel Bryan pulls the referee out. So who knows, maybe they're going to go for an Edge Daniel Bryan singles match going forward at WrestleMania Backlash, which is apparently what they're calling it now. Sweet Jesus. Anyway, as you said though, Phil, it looked like Edge had the match when he was going to go for a concerto on Roman Reigns, having hit one on Daniel Bryan. Jey Uso gets involved. He batters Jey Uso with the chair, but that allows Roman Reigns to recover and to give him a taste of his own medicine, spear him. Did he hit him concerto? Yeah, and then...
Yeah. And then he dragged Edge over the top of Daniel Bryan's body, dumped him there, and Roman Reigns, being the absolute cocky bastard that he is, pinned both of them in the main event of WrestleMania as just a final exclamation point on the "God damn it, I am the king of this company" storyline.
And like I said, it's divisive. People were praying for Daniel Bryan to win. That maybe this is one of his final WrestleManias. People were hoping with Edge being at 10 years to the day since he had to retire, maybe he can regain it. But he wears a big gold glove. He's wrestling Thanos, Roman Reigns, and
it works.
I'm not happy about the fact that Daniel Bryan didn't leave as Universal Champion. I wanted him to win. I could have accepted Edge winning, but at the same time, you have to accept Roman Reigns. And I know it's infuriating, but for me, this is just fascinating to see where they go next from here. And I realize that I'm putting faith in long-term booking here in WWE, and that's always dangerous. But the eternal optimist in me says Roman Reigns holds that title, maybe even until next WrestleMania. And you think about, well, you use the example, like, would Avengers would have been any good if at the end of, the first finale, they went, oh yeah, they beat Thanos. There you go.
Yeah.
Flying everyone. Like, I get it. There was a story there that you could have had Bryan pin Edge or Edge pin Bryan, and Roman's not involved and he hasn't lost it. He's lost his title, but he hasn't lost his title, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You could get Edge and Bryan as a singles match, and who the hell can stop Roman Reigns now? Because even if you can somehow beat Roman Reigns, you've got Jey Uso in his corner, you've got Paul Heyman in his corner, you've got potentially Jimmy Uso coming back. Who knows? So,
yeah. And whoever beats him at the end of the day, going to be that much more over because of it and because of this. Edge and Daniel Bryan don't need the championship at this point in their careers. Absolutely not. Whoever beats Roman Reigns next probably will, and it'll mean that much more down the line. And just, think of the storylines. Think of how cocky Roman's going to be on SmackDown. And think of how incredibly annoyed Edge is going to be at Daniel Bryan, and that probable Edge versus Daniel Bryan match that we're going to get as a grudge match that won't even need a title because Edge already has his gripes against Daniel Bryan, and how great that's going to be. There's a lot more to come from this storyline.
We talked about this on the stream. Edge wants to get back into the title picture. There's always a certain briefcase that he's been a particular fan of over the years, which is just mouth-watering. To think what that happens with that next. So great stuff. Unquestionably night one was better than night two of WrestleMania, but there were still moments, memorable moments, good and bad, like I said. But do let us know your thoughts on night two of WrestleMania and the whole weekend as well, as we head towards the Raw after WrestleMania tonight. Always forget how time works when we do these sorts of things. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts, of course. Plus, you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there. Follow Phil Chambers at
Phil My Chambers.
And you can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. And this has been what went down for WrestleMania Night 2. Oh, bloody hell, it's good to have fans back. My thanks to Phil Chambers. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.